You're listening to On Fire Concerts Artist Interview Series with your host, Ron Johnson.
So when did you, I know when you came away, when you moved to Nashville and so forth, you ended up with a couple of Pizza Huts or pizza places, not Pizza Huts, but pizza places. And
I was working I worked for Benson for a little over 2 years. And then he had his son Bob moved back here. He was a preacher, Nazarene preacher, pastor of church, California, and they moved back here. So he came to work there, and I loved old Bob. I mean, we got to be great friends. And unfortunately, he had cancer and he passed away. So our friendship lasted as long as he did, but it wasn't near long enough. But after he left, we had cut a record with Jimmy and Carol Snow. That's Hank Snow's son, right. Willie and Sonny Cooper's daughter, on Heartwarming Records, and through them I met Hank Snow, and I loved old Hank Snow because he was different,
right,
and his songs were different. I was an old ballad singer, I didn't sing much about moving on or the Golden Rocket or stuff like that, but I still liked what he done because he was a superstar at that time. But anyway, Jimmy and I got to be real close, his son, and Gene got real close with Carol Lee, so we were real good friends for a long time. But anyway, Hank mentioned to me one day that he was looking for somebody to take over his whole operation and run Hank Snow Enterprises. At that time, he had 3 radio stations, and he had a music store and offices upstairs over the music store, and a couple other things. He had a boat he named the Golden Rocket out here on the lake, He wanted me to just keep all that stuff, take care of all that, keep it on, everything but his touring.
right.
His recording, I didn't have to do that. So anyway, he made me an offer that was unbelievable. John T. Benson, after we got away from Elmo, he told me, he said, I was planning to give you 100, but he said, I wanted to keep you under what I was paying Elmo. And so he said, I'm going to give you 100 a week. The expense guy won't pay you car payment, the expense guy. And I did wear that Cadillac out. I mean, I was going on home. And but I went to every gospel singing there was to find
The artist,
a group that I thought would fit that label.
Yeah.
And I did. And then we wound up, I don't like to say I've done something for people because it makes it sound like you're bragging, but I met the Seagull family in Naomi. I met the Rambos. Met the Tennesseans, who was that was a good group back in those days. Anyway, these people wound up signing with Benson's Heartwarming record label. So I brought a lot of people in, made acquaintances with them.
I was blessed to work with Naomi.
Really?
Back about 10 years ago down in Fort Payne, Alabama. I took her and it was not Naomi and the Seagull brothers. It was just Naomi and the Seagulls.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Jerry, and I can't remember the other one. One of them, anyway, Naomi was in her 80s and could run circles around me.
Yeah.
But it still had a voice.
She was the group.
She was.
And James, they had to hire me. And this kind of stuff I don't want nobody to tell. I don't want to make anybody look bad, and I don't want to try to make myself look like anything else. But they tried their best to hire me to sing with them. And what happened, I met him. Now, this is another unusual deal, but this way my life has worked. I'm driving that Cadillac. John T's paying the payment on, he's paying all the upkeep on it. And I'm coming through Alabama. I've been to Florida and South Georgia, calling radio stations. And I really was everything that label had. I was the only one there. I mean, John T. Benson bragging on when he's talking to you.
Right.
And but he wasn't out. He didn't travel. I mean, he come in, he'd go eat breakfast, come in, lay down on the couch.
Right.
And if I talked to him, most of the time I was sitting in the chair over there. He was sitting right here looking like this. And I ain't making fun of him for having an eye problem. I didn't think it was that bad. But when he's like this, it wasn't really. I mean, if you knew it, you noticed.
You're right, but
And
if
it
you
bothered me.
didn't, you didn't.
But if he hadn't told me, I wouldn't have figured that out probably anytime soon. I would have sooner or later. But anyway, well, I forgot what I was even talking about now. I was going to tell you some big story.
When the lady, when you walked in and he was sitting there.
What was I? I was talking about bringing somebody that label.
We were talking about Naomi Segal.
Oh, Segal Brothers. How about that?
Right.
I was coming back, and I was on my way home. I was hollering, and I see this old black bus parked in front of a sleazy at that time looking motel, but it was one of those back like this and like this, a U-shaped thing. And the pool was out there in the middle of the motel. This black, excuse me, old black bus sitting there, old Flex. I don't know if you know buses or not. But anyway, I looked at it and said, Seagull Brothers Naomi on the side of it. I just hit them brakes and shut her down. I just whipped a U-turn. It was on 2-lane highway. Whipped a U-turn, went back. This bunch of people was out in that pool. So I walked around there, and the pool, the bus was kind of hiding the pool from the road. But I walked around there where the people, folks were swimming, and I said, excuse me, but I said, would you happen to know where the people riding this bus, do you know what room they'd be in? And one of the guys said, that's us. And it was. And it was James and Lamar and what's her name? Naomi. And 2 or 3 kids. And the kids were their grandkids. And so anyway, James and Lamar get out of the pool. There's another one, I can't think his name. There's 3 of them brothers. And so anyway, I handed him my card, and it made me look like I was important. And but the Heartwarming Records, Jay Jackson, the Heartwarming Records, is what I said. I said, I'm Jay Jackson. I'm with Heartwarming Records. And I said, on my way home, I seen your bus. I just want to stop and shake your hand. And they had, sorry, I never knew you.
That was the first million seller.
Yes, it was. And they never made no money on it. A guy named Cecil Scaife made the money. That was one that John T. Benson mentioned.
Yeah.
When he was telling me about the record labels in town. But anyway, they said they wanted me to stay. They were singing at school that night, close to that hotel where they were staying, a little old town. I don't even know the town. And they asked me, and it was later in the evening, and they asked me if I'd stay and go to that show with them, and I could hear them sing, and then I'd know what to tell John T. because they said they'd love signing on my label. And they said, would he buy us a new bus? And I said, probably not. He ain't done that yet. But I said, he's got the money to buy one if he wanted to. And John T. told me he'd put whatever kind of money in there needed. Because they're rich then. They're really rich.
Right.
They weren't as rich as they were when they sold that property.
Right.
The telephone company. That's when they made the leg. But anyway, James was done talking to me, but he said, I'd like for you to hear us in person and know what to tell him. But he said, if you would, just mention him, this old bus on his last leg. And it looked like it was, just sitting there. And he said, if we keep going, he said, we've got some momentum now, got that song behind us. And everybody knows it, and they know us from that song. He said, I think we'd be worth a little upfront money. He's putting the pitch on me.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be there putting the pitch on him, So I stayed. And I popped the trunk in my car a little later when they got out of the pool. And I popped the trunk in my car, and I had a guitar and amp in the trunk. And old James and Lamar were standing there, and they said, you a guitar player? And I said, shoot, yeah, man. And I was then. And I fingerpicked him. And in fact, my last paying job in the music business was I played the guitar and sung with Wally Fowler and his original bunch.
The original Boys quartet.
Before it was the Oak Ridge
Right,
Boys.
the quartet was.
In fact, that's another story I wouldn't tell. I mean, I wouldn't want told. But the reason they called me, I had a trio called the Velvetones, and he was booking us for $300 a night. And I was working for Benson when I started that group. And he called me one day, wanted to come over there, and I went. And he said, "Man, I got a proposition for you." He had a little heart attack. And, he started the Oak Ridge Quartet in Oak Ridge.
Yeah.
That's where he's from in 1940. And he was smart. And he had that name registered. He owned it. And had copyrights on all the stuff. Man. But anyway, he told me, he said, Smitty Gatlin left that great. Well, he had this heart attack, and the doctor told him he needed to lay off for 3 or 4 months. So he did. And somebody come by, wanted to buy his old bus. He sold it to him. So everybody thought he ain't never going back to work. And so Smitty had the Smitty Gatlin Trio. He bought this old bus, had Smitty Gatlin Trio painted on the side of it. And then he hired Herman Harper to sing bass with him. And there's a quartet.
Yeah.
So he didn't put the Smitty Gatlin Quartet down the side there.
Yeah.
He painted that out and put Smitty Gatlin in the Oak Ridge Quartet. So somebody called Wally and said, "Man, did you say your name's Smitty?" He said, "No." And he said, "He's got Smitty Gatlin Trio." And he said, "No, he's got Smitty Gatlin Quartet. I seen his bus going down there." And so he checked it out, and sure enough, Smitty done got him a quartet and called it the Oak Ridge Quartet. And he said, "I went and talked to Lawyer, and he says I can win either way. But he said, if I start working again, get back on the road right quick," he said, "he can throw it out of court. We won't even have to go. We get judgment against him from using that thing."
Yeah.
So he said, "I'll give you $400 a night." He had 8 dates booked for the Velvetones. He said, "We'll work those dates. I'll go with y'all. We'll be the Oak Ridge Quartet. I'll send them all a little mailing out and tell them that the Oak Ridge Quartet is going to be singing in place of the Velvetones for that show." And he said, "I'll do that for all 8 of them, and then I'll book some more." And he said, "I'll pay your car payment and take care of your car because I don't have a bus. We got to ride in your car." And he said, "I got no car," but he said, "I wouldn't want to go on the road." So we traveled in my Cadillac for about 4 or 5 months as the Oak Ridge Quartet. I had a piano player play the crap out of the piano. And then he got the judgment against Smitty for taking his name, forbid him from using the name. And that's the reason they wound up being the Oak Ridge Boys.
I think Wally Fowler, I think, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but boy, he was known as Man with 1,000 Friends or something like that.
Yeah, something like
Something like that.
I'm not sure that's it exactly.
He was into the promotions as well.
Oh, he's big time.
Yeah.
He done the Friday night, all night singers at the Opry.
Yeah.
Started after the Opry, and it ended at 4 in the morning. And he took this Velvetones Trio. We sung almost pop kind of stuff too, because this piano player was into me.
Yeah.
I spent 5 minutes of our program challenging you to name a song he couldn't play. Challenge the audience. And I don't care if it's Liberace
or whatever he could play.
Whoever it was, Dale Woods, I mean, Down Yonder, it didn't matter. He was some kind of piano player. He turned out to be gay, and that was a big problem we had. He fell in love with the baritone singer I had. So that's the reason we stayed with him until he got that deal settled.
So
then I quit altogether.
A lot of folks will ask me that know we're friends on Facebook, and they'll say things, and they'll say, well, "Mr. Jackson, he's out every night with somebody else." And he said, him and his son. So you were in the t-shirt, you started a t-shirt business.
I started that company in 1984. I took a big trip when I was working for Hank Snow. I bought a Dipper Dan ice cream store in Donaldson. And then I put a pizza joint in Madison. And that little pizza store, boy, it was a little small hole in the wall deal. But I specialized. I've always tried to treat everybody like I want to be treated. I was a big fat boy. I liked to eat, and I wanted to get my money's worth when I went to the restaurant.
Right.
And I tried in that ice cream joint. I told every ice cream dipper that ever worked in there while I owned it, give them big dip, make it hang over the edge where they got to eat that first round fast before it melts. Because that's the way I like it. That's the way I want to do the customer. So in the pizza business, I wanted a layer of each flavor you ordered. If you ordered pepperoni, onions, and bell peppers, I didn't want a little bit of sprinkling of what you want. I want to make a layer of pepperoni, a layer of bell peppers, and a layer of onions. And that's the way I done it because that's the way I liked it myself. And if you will try to please everybody like you please yourself, you'll make everybody happy. So I had an advertisement I put out, a half a page in a little throwaway thing they call the Madison Shopper.
Yeah.
It cost $25 for a half page ad in there. And I put an ad in there, come to Luigi's Pizza, you buy one, get one free. And they come in there 3 on a horse, and we made pizzas. And I called my brother and his wife, and they didn't live far from there. And I called them to come down and just fold boxes. But I knew they didn't know how to make a pizza. But a chimpanzee could fold a box if you showed them how. So I had to have some help because we didn't have enough help in there. My wife and I were in there as fast as we'd go. The employees were hired, but they're doing their thing. But anyway, that was the last ad I ran. And I kept that store for about 3.5 years, and I sold it to the Singing Deweys, a gospel singing family that moved here from, I think, Nebraska is where they came here from. And in fact, they're still around. LaVoy's a friend of mine on Facebook now, and they still travel some, and he also is a preacher, preaches. But anyway, I had such good luck with the Luigi's place, and I had a little girl that worked there. She was 4 feet and 10 inches tall, and she's real bouncy and had real long hair, and she ironed it on an ironing board to keep it straight. And she walked in, and I'll have that made when I worked for Hank Snow. Had a ring made out. Like I said a little earlier in this conversation, I loved anything glitter, and I wanted diamonds.
Glitter.
Now I got more diamond rings than I got fingers, and look gaudy, and I know that. And so you can call me gaudy, but I don't care. Stuff I like. But I had this thing on. It's got that J in there. So she walks in and looks at me, and she said, "Papa John, what caused you to put a pizza joint in this little place here?" And I said, "Where do you get this Papa John?" She said, "Well, you just look like that ought to be your name. You got a J around your neck." So I assumed you was named John, and I figured you was old enough for me to call you Papa. And that was funny to me. I liked that. And I thought, this is my kind of people. But anyway, she ate that pizza, and she was talking to me all the time she was eating. And she looked like she was about 12 years old. And she asked me, she said, "Why don't you give me a job in this joint?" And I said, "When you get 16, come by here and talk to me." But I can't hire anybody that's not 16. And she whips her driver's license out. She's 19, going to interior decorating school in Franklin. And so it turned out I didn't hire that day, but I did hire her. And she always called me Papa John. She never called me anything else. So I got ready to open my next pizza joint. And I found a building in Hendersonville that I was looking at. And I was talking to the guy that I had managing that Luigi's Pizza joint in Madison. And I said, "I believe I'm going to rent that building, start another one." And I said, "I'm trying to decide whether to change the name, see if I can do the same thing twice with a different name. And that might be an indication to me whether I was trying to franchise them." And they were franchising everything then, you know. And she spoke up and she said, "Well, I'll tell you one thing for sure. if you don't call it Papa John's, I'll never step foot in there. I won't work in there. I won't eat in there because you're Papa John, and that's what that next one ought to be called. So like I told you, done a little artwork from time to time. I got a pad, and I draw out a building, kind of like that building was. Put a sign up there, just said Papa John's Pizza. And I use old steamboat letters, like I think would look good on a pizza. And she seen it laying there, and she said, "That's it. That's what I'm talking about right there." So I named that next one Papa John's. That was in 1968. And everybody thinks I was connected with those guys. I wasn't. Some of those guys ate with us. They knew about our place.
Right.
Because I wound up, I built a new building that seated 216 people.
Right.
And I had a balcony around three sides, had a big stage over the kitchen. Hired me a bunch of hillbillies, and we played country music, sold Italian food. And I've done that for about, I was in restaurant business, all that stuff for 15 years.
Yeah.
Then I was fortunate, I think everybody that was anybody ate in there. So we had all them stars eating in there all the time. And so I knew a lot of them. And Conway Twitty called me one day, and after I got out of the restaurant business, and I made one tour with an art show.
Right.
And toured around the country selling I've done watercolors and pen and ink drawings, pencil drawings. And I made that one tour, and I was gone more than I was in all those other jobs. And I liked being out there doing an art show.
Right. I
didn't like being gone. I decided I wasn't going to do that anymore. And I just got back, and I'd done an album cover for Conway a few years before. And I'd done a thing for him when they opened Twitty City. I drew this collage and had his office and his home and the bus and his 57 T-Bird. And
right.
a picture of him and a bunch of songs fanned around there that were all number ones that paid for all that crap that was in the picture, the Twitty City complex.
Right.
But anyway, he called me and wanted me to come up there, and I went up there. And he had started this company to do his own merchandise. And he said, he asked me what I was doing. I said, well, nothing right now. And he said, I've started this company to do my own merchandise, but I need somebody to come in there and sell for me, because he said, everybody's calling, wants to do their merchandise. I need somebody he said, I got the guys do the printing. We're already doing that. But he said, I need somebody that can kind of pull it all together. And he said, I thought you might be good for that if you'd be interested in it. And I first told him I didn't think so. They told me how much he'd pay me. He was a lot more generous than Benson.
So you think, well, maybe I am interested.
I thought I'd get interested pretty quick. Keep on talking. I'm getting interested. And so I went to work for him. And I worked for Concessions Management, a company that he owned for 3.5 years. And he was one of the nicest, kindest people I've ever known to work with. And then after he passed away, they sent me the original that I had drawn from him. It hung in that gift shop over a display of prints that they sold of that picture. But after a month or so, they had that picture in a puzzle form, and they had it on a brass plaque. And then they had a 16 by 20 of it that was the pen and ink drawing of the watercolor tint I'd done. But anyway, they sent, what I started to tell you, he called me up there after they'd opened the gift shop and been open for 3 months, I think it was, end of the quarter. He called me up there, and I walked in. He's got a check, and he hands me a check. And I said, what's that for? And he said, that's your part of the pictures that we've sold of that drawing, the prints we've sold of that drawing that you've done for us up here. I said, man, I gave that to you. You don't owe me nothing for that. He said, nope. He said, I get royalties on my songs. He said, I want you to have royalty on your artwork. So they paid me a check on a regular basis for what they sold in that gift shop. Then, when he passed away, they gave me that original painting back. And I got it hanging in this house right now. Hangs upstairs. So I thought that's pretty classic.
That was classic.
Because I gave it to him. It was a gift to him. He didn't have to give me any money for it. If I give you something, it's yours.
Conway
I'll loan you something, give it back.
Conway was, of course, I met him one twice as a younger guy, of course. My mother, if Conway Twitty was anywhere in 300 miles, she was going to be there.
Oh, man.
Conway had a restaurant, and you know this in Memphis. It was called Twitty Bird.
Oh, yeah.
So I grew up in Memphis, so we would go over there before he was going to be at the Mid-South Coliseum, and we'd eat. And my dad was blind all my life.
Oh, man.
But Dad had a $100 bill that Conway had signed probably 20 times. And so we were over there eating one night before we went to the show, and Conway was making his rounds. Mother said, "There's Conway. Get him sign that. Get him sign that $100 bill." Anyway, so Conway signed it, and he said, "Thank you for being Jason. I just tell you, I just don't really care about your music or anything else." He said, "Yeah, but she does." He said, "But my wife loves you." He said, "Ain't that nice?" He said, "You're here, ain't you?"
Oh,
he said, "All these men are here." He said, "The women love me."
Women are crazy about it.
He said, that's what I count on. Yeah. But Dave was just joking. But I think he was Conway was very nice.
He was one of the nicest people. His wife, Mickey, was super nice. I loved her and the kids. They were all just.
We put the last time I've seen any of the kids, as far as Kathy, her daughter got ill, and I did a benefit with the Troubadour back 7, 8, 10 years ago, whenever it was, for Angela. But they're just nice family.
They always were. We went to that Loretta Lynn thing they had at the Troubadours.
Yeah,
Troubadour.
Always Loretta.
Always Loretta. And that was something somebody ought to go see. It was a beautiful deal. And that girl nails Loretta pretty good.
Emily is a sweetheart. She's
great.
I've worked with her 2 or 3 times.
I don't know her, but she done great. But anyway, it was kind of funny. We were sitting there, and like I said, we know a lot of people, and everybody was coming to our table and speaking to us. And Joni, Conway's daughter, and Jimmy, his son, were there that night. And they were sitting up in the balcony. They seen us, and they came down. Of course, I've known them since they were little kids when they first moved here. But Joni was 16 when they moved here. I met her before the rest of them. And anyway, she had come here and started school early and stayed with a guy named Ellie White and his wife Betty. And Ellie he wrote After the Fire's Gone, several of them big #1 songs. But anyway, Joni was staying with them when I first met her. And she was the sweetest little girl then. But anyway, her and Jimmy come down and shook hands with us. And then there was a lady and her mother was sitting behind us. And after they left, she stood up and she said, "Who are you?" asked me. I said, "I'm nobody." And she said, "You gotta be." She said, "Everybody that comes in here comes by there and speaks to y'all." And she said, "Who was that couple?" And I said, "That was Conway Twitty's daughter and his son." And that was Jimmy and Joni. And she said, "I thought that's who they were." She said, "I've seen pictures." She said, "She used to sing with him." And she had that song, "Don't Cry, Joni." Right. And I said, "Yeah, she did." Anyway, we've now got to be friends with the people that were sitting behind us. And the lady's son and the girl's brother on the Lincoln Jamboree, Hodgensville, Kentucky. And they do big country shows up there. You're probably familiar with that.
I know who they are.
But anyway, that's the way I've met people all my life. I'll meet somebody, be talking to somebody I know, meet somebody else I don't know. Sometimes they're celebrities and sometimes they're not. But I've got to be good friends with most of my friends are country people. And everybody does. They joke a lot. I've already told you my age. I'm 88 years old. I've never had a drink in my life. I don't criticize people who drink. Most of my people who are close friends of ours drink.
Right.
I can sit there and drink a Coke, or a glass of water, and you can drink highest powered stuff, Jack Daniels or Jim Beam or whoever it is. I don't mind. I'm not offended by that. Right. But I've just chosen not to drink. And all my life I never have. But every time people see me, he's in a beer joint. But I'm probably in there to pick up a check from those folks for T-shirts they bought from our company, Screenplay. And or I'm in there to see a program, see some of our customers who are working there and they're playing, singing. We go watch it. they buying T-shirts from us. We go watch them sing.
Right.
And the places they sing are not always churches, but in churches, people respect you and don't take your picture. In a beer joint, if you got a blonde hanging on your shoulder, they grab a picture of that and put it on Facebook. So I don't resent that. In fact, it's kind of a compliment.
It is.
And you know, we've met a lot of people and we've met a lot of good folks. And I'll tell you something about the beer joints where you see us, like the Troubadours one. And those people do benefits. They done one yesterday, and I was there.
For Rodney's brother.
Rodney Collins owns that place, and he owns the Music City Bar and Grill. And we do T-shirts for him. That's our business part of the angle. But I love those people. They're great people. And old Rodney wears a cross around his neck, and I said something about liking that cross, and he told me what he appreciates about that cross. And there was a deep religious experience he has. So don't judge a book by its cover, the business somebody's in. He does benefit shows. That one was for his brother yesterday. Brother's in the hospital in intensive care on a machine, and he asked everybody to pray for him, and I think a lot of people did. He was there. He wasn't up bouncing around, but he was there. But he has raised thousands of dollars in the last couple of years that I've known about for people who have cancer, people who have heart attacks that don't have money to pay their own hospital bills. He'll go in there and get a bunch of hillbillies together
and do a performance.
And we'll print them 100 T-shirts and give them to them so they can sell them for $20 a piece. And I give them a piece of art that they auction off. And some of those things brought $500-600 a piece and pick up some extra change. And I said, somebody said something to me about every time they see a picture of me, I'm in a beer joint. And one time somebody said that right after they'd done one of these benefits, and I said, I'll tell you what, I'm familiar with your church, and I've never seen your church do a benefit for somebody that had cancer. They done one over here and raised $22,000 for somebody that did. So
you don't judge people by, it's like
they can be what they want to be and do the Lord's work. And I believe they do that when they do a benefit for somebody that can't help themselves and they're helping. So I'm all about that.
I've done the benefit we were talking about and others, and but people would say, well, that family, it ain't about the family, it's about that person that I'm doing it for.
Yep.
And I said, I don't care what the family has or don't have. I mean, it's for this person.
You know, one member of family be Richard Rockefeller, and the rest would be
and I said, and you don't know if you don't know all the family details, and we don't. I don't care. This is what I'm doing it for.
Ask. And if somebody tells me, like it was kind of funny, somebody called me about doing T-shirts for a benefit show at the Troubadour. This was 2 or 3 years ago, and she told me her name when she called me, but she didn't act like she knew me, and she didn't remember me at that time. But when she told me what her name was, I knew her, and she'd been a #1 backup singer years ago when I used to do a lot of demos before I lost my voice and all this other stuff. But anyway, they wanted to buy 100 shirts to try to sell and raise money for this benefit. Yeah. And she told me what it was for, and I told her, and she told me what they wanted on it. And I said, we'd be happy to donate 100 shirts to that cause for you to sell them. And then we got talking, and I asked her if she was the one that used to do demos, and she was. And so anyway, we done those 100 shirts, and then somebody else asked me if I'd sell one of those. I do a print of the Ryman. I did one of the Ryman Auditorium. And somebody asked me if I'd sell one of those, and I said, shoot, no. I said, I'll give you one. And I took it and had it framed. And I put it in about $150 frame, you know, they look pretty good. It brought $600 at that auction. They had a little auction out there. So I've been doing that ever since. You know, if I know about one, I'll put it.
I tell people in relation to you when somebody asks me about it or about you, if I, because they see our picture or we know each other through Facebook and otherwise. And I said, well, if you ever bought a concert T-shirt, you probably came through him.
We've sold millions of them. Hank Williams Jr., we started selling him T-shirts in '86. And he was in Kentucky, Beaver Dam or whatever that Kentucky name is. We went up there to the concert. It was getting toward, and he had a couple of dates left in last year, so we went up there. And somebody told him we were out there. And he said, "Tell him come over here on the bus." So we went over out in by, and walked in there. And the bus was full of people. First thing he said is, he said, "Big J, how many T-shirts have we sold since 1985 when we started buying them from y'all?" I said, "Shoot, I don't know about millions of them. I like your records." And he looked around the room and said, "That's what I told you guys. We sold a bunch of T-shirts." And we have. And we still, Hank's still out there working, boy. He's kicking it, having one of the best years he's had yet.
And I seen a video of him the other day.
Still one of our big customers. But if you see me in a place, or J-Boy, that you think is probably not a place we'd go, we're probably in there selling a T-shirt, talking about designing a T-shirt, or picking up a check for the ones they done bought. And but we love those people. They're all great. And
it's like if people say, like I've told you, I don't drink to speak of, and I don't. 6-pack a year, maybe. And I said, they say, but you're like you go here and there. It's the music, it's the people that we're connected to.
Yep.
And whatever we're doing. And as a promoter, you go where the music is.
You got to.
And you got to make your connections.
Well, I've always had a business plan that's one line. And I went to borrow some money from the bank, from Mr. Caudill. He basically owned that bank himself. He's an old man then. And I walked in there, and he was sitting behind his desk, and he spoke to me, and called me Papa John. Everybody did after I named that restaurant there. And anyway, he just spoke to me, and I never went to talk to him.
Yeah.
I went in there, I went up to the teller's cage and made a deposit and left, But he spoke to me when I come in. So I just turned around and I said, "Have you got a minute?" And he said, "Yes, sir." He said, "What do you need?" And I said, "Well, I need to borrow some money." And he kind of laughed, and he said, "Well, man, you're making more money than anybody down, because Papa John's was covered up all the time, And he knew what I was doing because I was depositing money in there. But anyway, I said, "Well, I want to build a new building." I said, "We've outgrown that building." I said, "I want to build one big enough to play music in there." So I told him what I had in mind, what I wanted to do. And I already had the plans, and I drew them myself, and I had them. And they was rolled up, in my hand. And anyway, he said, "How much you need?" And I said, "Well," I said, "I talked to a builder, and he thinks he can build it for $110,000. And I bought the land, and I've already paid for it. So I need to borrow $110,000. And this was in 1969 when I was doing that. And I started building that building just a little while after that. Got it finished up in the middle of 70. So anyway, he said, "All right." He said, "Have you got a building plan?" I said, "Yes, sir." A business plan is what he called it. And he said, "Did you bring it with you?" And I said, "No, I got the plans of the building I'd like to build." And he said, "Well," he said, "we kind of need to see your business plan and see what you think you can do." And what we look at that and we determine what we figure. I said, "Well, I know what you're talking about. Stack of papers about that thick, whole history of my life. I don't have that." But I said, "I can give you my business plan real quick." And he said, "I don't understand what you're saying." I said, "My business plan has always been, with everything I've done, is treat everybody like you want to be treated."
That's right.
And I said, it works. He said, "You think you really do that?" And I said, "I think I have done that." And I told him that what I just told you about a pizza.
Yeah.
I didn't sprinkle stuff. I put a whole layer because that's the way I like it. And if I buy one from you, I want it to look like that.
Right.
So I'm going to sell you one that looks like that. And that's what I told him. I said, "That's my business plan." And I said, "When I come in here, you loan me money. You respected me by loaning me money. I'm going to respect you by paying it back."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he sat there for a few minutes, and he said, He said, you know what I think I'm gonna do? And I said, what? And he said, I think I'm gonna loan you money. He had this lady sitting at another desk that was fairly close to him, you know. And he reached out to her and does like that. And she gets up and walks over and he said, Pop John needs to borrow $110,000. Go over here and just get a note and for him to sign and go ahead and give him a cashier's check. I walked out of that bank that day with a check for $110,000. Called James Case, a builder, and told me he thought he could build it for 110. He built it for about 100, a little bit less than 100, and built it quicker than I thought he could. And we was in there flying high, and I hired me a band, and we picked some country music, sold Italian food, which, as everybody knows, go together. Nobody thought that'd work. Everybody said, I can't believe that.
You can't believe it.
I think you could sell barbecue or hamburgers or hot dogs maybe, but
Yeah.
Italian food with pizza, I mean with country
it
music.
works.
But it worked, and we sold a lot of pizzas. We sold a lot of spaghetti, a lot of lasagna, sandwiches, and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I spent 15 years doing that, and I hooked up with Conway, and then I started Screenplay. After 3.5 years, Conway was a little tired of that business, and I was tired of working for somebody else, even if it was Conway Twitty.
Right.
But Conway had other management people handling it,
Right.
CPAs, lawyers, and all that crap, you know.
Right.
And so I started a company called Screenplay. And to start with, the first big job we had wasn't in entertainment. But they were building a nuclear plant in Hartsville up the road about 50 miles. And everybody that worked there on that property had to wear a hazmat logo
Right.
on any piece of clothing they wore. So we got the job of printing that hazmat logo on all their wearables up there. And so that's what we were doing. And then we got Randy Travis, and he had just had 1982, and on the other hand were super hits. And so we got him over there, and we got Hank Williams Jr. And first thing you know, buddy, we had everybody. And our list of clients in the t-shirt business looks like the who's who of
I have
country.
seen and a bunch of prints, actual prints.
Mm-hmm.
And you know where I've seen them. And I said, but I've seen them, and I thought, who have they not done? Yeah.
I've got a list somewhere that's really like 4 pages.
Oh, it's amazing.
And,
I mean, it's like you said, it's a who's who. You name them,
and people like Burt Reynolds done one tour. We done the merchandise for it.
Yeah.
I never got to meet him, but I met his daddy and his sister.
Yeah. But I mean, it's amazing. And you and Jay Boy, we call Jay Boy, y'all are, you know, I've always, ever since I met you, I've just thought that it's the coolest people. You know, and you treat, like you said, you treat the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, you know, I've met all these celebrities, like we done Merle Haggard's merchandise for 32 years till he passed away. And I've tried to be careful and I'm not the kind of guy that because I know them, you can come in here and say, man, I want you to introduce me to him.
Yeah.
If I hope and pray a situation will happen where you'll wind up there and I'll wind up there and I can say, meet my friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ron. I like for that to happen for you, but I would not take you to their house or to their office
or give a number
or give them a phone number or go backstage and
you know, as a promoter, we get asked.
You know the same thing.
You get people say, can I just want to say, if you do it for one, you do it for all. And you can't do that, and it's the respect.
I've had a lot of people want me to pitch songs. My answer to that is, man, I've written a lot of songs myself. I've had 16 songs recorded. I had one that was good enough. I went and bought a new Cadillac.
Right.
And Billy Walker recorded a song called Carlina that I wrote.
Right.
And I got that first royalty check. I went and bought me a new Cadillac, thought I had the gift of songwriting. And that was the only one I ever had I could have bought you dinner with. The rest of them, I mean, I got $38 royalty checks from BMI. I think the last one I got was like $12. So.
But it's amazing how friends will ask you things like that. They don't mean nothing by it. They don't realize where it put you.
They want a meeting,
and you just can't do it. And talk about songwriting, not to cut you off, but songwriting, your songwriting. Papa J's nominated for a Josie Music Award.
I didn't know anything about that. I wrote a song called Building Back the Bridges that I burned. And it starts off, he burned a whole bunch of bridges and then he realized he made a mistake. So he starts trying to build them back. And a guy, a friend of ours from Akron, from Dayton, Ohio, is a preacher. He's a good friend. He's the guy that taught me into playing the guitar a little bit. Well, he's a good songwriter. And years ago, when he was younger, he had several songs recorded, and he's back writing again. And him and his wife sing. They sing in their church and other churches. And he's a great musician, plays piano and drums. He can do an album, play all the instruments, and does that. But he's got a small studio. But anyway, he liked that song, and him and his wife recorded it. And I think they're putting it on an album they had. But anyway, he submitted that song to them, and it is nominated. I didn't know anything about that until somebody made some remark about it. And I said,
I think it's a well-deserved nomination. And Josie Music Awards, just for folks that don't know, they're the largest independent music awards in the world. And they have so much other stuff going on, record label they own. They do everything. And the Josie Music Awards, strictly independent. And this year it's at the Opry, the Grand Ole Opry. I've been fortunate enough to win one of them, been nominated, I think somebody told me twice this year. And there again, last year when I was nominated, somebody told me, and I said I didn't know I was nominated. Yeah, but it's a great thing, and for young independent or old independent, it's out there.
Well, I'd love to win it. I don't expect to, and you're competing against some people that really, I never took songwriting serious. I never took art serious, and I haven't made a fortune with those things, but I've enjoyed doing it. I enjoy writing.
What you enjoy.
I enjoyed that artwork. Like I said, I never ever presented myself as a songwriter. I never pitched my own songs. And what I used to tell people, I started telling that and got off on something else, but people would say, man, I got a song I want you to give to whoever at the moment that they thought that song would fit. And I said, man, I'm sorry, I don't pitch. I sell T-shirts, I don't pitch songs. And I said, I write songs myself, I don't pitch mine either. And I've never done a cold call with a CD in my hand or a cassette as they would use when I was done. And walked in there and said, man, I got a song I want you to listen to. I've never done that, ever. I've had some say, man, I heard you wrote some songs, I'd like to hear some of them. And Billy Walker, the way he recorded that song he did, I was at Jimmy Snow's church on Dixon Road, and I sung that night, and I sung a song called Almost Home that I had written. After the service, Billy Walker was there. He was a Grand Ole Opry star at that time. People today probably don't remember him either. He and his wife were tragically killed in a car wreck a few years back. But he turned out to be one of my best friends. But he was in that service that night, and after it was over, he walked over to me and he said, man, I love that song. He said, I'm getting ready to do my first gospel album. And he said, I want to ask you if you knew who wrote that song. He said, I'd like to put that on that album. And I said, I know the dude that wrote that song, and I can go ahead and speak for him. He'd be tickled to death if you recorded it. So Almost Home was on his first gospel album. He looked at me and said, did you write that? And I said, yeah, I did. So he recorded it. He was on Monument Records at that time. And a few days later, he called me and he said, I got a question for you. And I said, what'd that be? And he said, have you ever just considered writing a song for a particular artist? And I said, Lord, no. I said, I've never thought about that. And he said, well, I got something in mind I'd like to have. And he said, you might be able to write it. And I said, what is it? And he said, you know, my first big hit was Cross the Brazos at Waco. Nobody remembers that either unless they're old as me.
Yeah, I remember the song, but I'm not as old as you, but I love country, old country music.
Well, country music died in the wool
Right.
fan will know it. But anyway, Cross the Brazos at Waco was old gunfighter ballad. And it was had a good feel to it, and it sold him a lot of records and got his name recognized. It made him a Grand Ole Opry star for a lot of years. He sold a lot of records, played a lot of shows. But anyway, he said, I'd like to have something with that flavor to it, but just completely different. I don't want it like it. But he said, I want to put Grady Martin playing the guitar on there. I want to put some trumpets on there. And he said, I want that kind of sound, that kind of flavor. And he said, I don't care. It's got to have some love in it. It's got to have some tragedy in it. And he just told me this
You
stuff.
what you wanted. What he wanted.
Writing that down on my little memory bank, which was a lot longer then than it is now. And so that night, I was sitting down in Luigi's Pizza Joint in Madison. And I was sitting in one of the 4 tables I had in that place. That's how big it was. And I got thinking about that. And I had seen a picture of this Mexican girl on velvet with a big rose in her hair. And I had that girl pictured in my mind to write about. So, and I was saying a bunch of Mexican names, come up with this Carlina. And I thought that might fit, you know. So I sat there and I didn't have room in that little place for a guitar, but I had a baritone ukulele. I kept under the counter. And I told this little mini girl I had working there, I said, hand me my ukulele. And so she reached in and got it and handed it to me. She said, are you going to sing? And I said, no, I'm going to think. And I'm going to write something down. And so anyway, and there wasn't any customers in there. And it was a to-go place. So many people ordered and come in and picked them up. So anyway, I got that ukulele and I sat there, got me a melody going, you know. And he told me he wanted Grady Martin playing the guitar. And I knew that style he played.
Right.
I was trying to do that, you know. So I come up with a little melody and I wrote that song. I wrote it that night. So I called old Billy the next morning. I said, I might have wrote your song last night. I don't know if I did or not. But I wrote a song about a girl named Carlina. And she gets shot and killed in the middle of it. And he said, man, that sounds good. He said,
oh, I'll be over.
He said, I'll be right over there. So he did. He lived about 10 minutes from there at that time. So he came in there, and I took that baritone ukulele and played it and sung it for him. He said, that's it. He said, I didn't hear nothing in there I want to change. So he calls Fred Foster that day. He said, set me up a session, man. I got my next single. I want to get in there and cut it. And he had enough clout. He was in the driver's seat with his record label. Usually you're not. You know how that works. You got to have a couple of hit records before you got to say it all about what you do. And he was past that point.
Right.
And so anyhow, he took that song in there and recorded it. And I told 2 or 3 people that, like a friend of mine was at the group that backed up Sonny James, who was a big hit maker at that time. And I told him, I said, man, Billy Walker recorded one of my songs. He said, I don't expect you to ever hear it on the radio. He said, Billy's kind of past his zone, you know, and he's off into doing other stuff. He's doing gospel now. And he's working in some churches, and he did sing in some big churches and stuff like that. And so this guy and his wife, they like Mexican food, and we do too. And the only Mexican restaurant in town then was on Murfreesboro Road, La Fiesta Mexican restaurant. And we lived in Hendersonville, and they lived out off of Murfreesboro Road on Outerways. So we wheel in there and pick them up. We get in the car, And Harold Hensley, who was a DJ on WSN
Yeah.
for years, he comes. These people had just got in our car. I was backing out of their driveway, and old Harold comes on. He says, "All right," he said, "everybody reach over, turn up your radio volume." He said, "We've got a new record we're going to play you from Billy Walker. It's the greatest thing he's had since Cross the Brazos to Waco," which was the song he told me to
make it go
get as
about.
close to as I could get. That's all I need to hear about that. I done got paid for writing that song. And this guy's sitting there, the one that told me not to expect to hear it on the radio. And he said, "I'm going to play it. I want y'all to call in and let me know what you think about it." So we back out and I get in the road. Here it comes, man. The guitar picking old Grady Martin, kicking it off. And we drove to Lafayette's restaurant. And we ate, was probably in there an hour. And sure as we're sitting here talking, sure as we're sitting here and I'm talking, you ain't saying nothing. We get in the car. Harold says, "Man, you won't believe the phone calls we've had on Carlina. And we're going to play it again." And they played that thing when we walked out of the restaurant, got in the car. As soon as we got in, got seated, he set it up and started playing that song again. So twice we heard it in an hour.
In the hour, yeah.
And it started playing. And I think it got number 13 in Billboard or something like that. I mean, it got.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Billy did Walking in Charlie's Shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it,
Yeah. And he had a song called "1,000,001" that went pop.
Yeah.
And he had a bunch of them.
Right. So the songwriting award nomination for the Josie is well deserved.
See, I've never been nominated. Like I said, I had that one song, and I went and bought that Cadillac. And excuse me, man, blurt that out if you can. But I never ever done anything I've done for anything more than getting paid to do it. I never expected any